The Botstiber Foundation is interested in Austrian-American relations, and one of the questions is, what are these relations and what do people in Austria think about the relationship with the US? And what do Americans think about Austria? So there's a question is, what is the basis? What data do we have in order to know anything about the foundation between Austria and the United States in which Botstiber is interested?
It's totally true. As Reinhard said, the studies that have been made are dated. And in the last 25, 30 years, so much has happened to change the picture, to change the attitude, to change the countries involved.
30-some questions, but the questions had many more items that allowed us to extract a pretty comprehensive picture of each other's views. And we've been analyzing the data ever since, and we had the field work in Austria in February, and we had the field work in the United States in April. So during a very, very interesting time period. The Trump presidency came into existence, came into office. The Austrians were responding to it. At the same time, the Americans were responding also. And I think this is one of the first surveys we have of this nature at the beginning of the Trump presidency.
Well, actually, as an American living in Europe right now, the survey didn't surprise me. I did think when I read the results, this is more situational than usual. I think the changes in the United States have been so big that, of course, there are primarily negative reactions among a broad range of people living in Europe. There were very interesting points, though. For example, the idea that something like 78% thought of America as a violent society. On the other hand, 78% thought of it as a place of freedom or opportunity. That interested me also, because I think that for Europeans, the violence is actually related to the question of freedom and opportunity. That America comes across as a bit of a lawless society. It's the fact that we have guns and Europeans don't. For the Europeans, the breadth of our freedom and opportunity is not necessarily a positive thing because it comes at a cost. So I found those results interesting.
But the much more interesting thing for us is then trying to figure out, okay, so now we have a snapshot, we have a map of how people feel, but we want to know, why do they feel that way? What's the reason behind it? And who are the people who have these opinions versus people who have other opinions? So it's the interesting thing is when you connect the questions.
First of all, the survey shows that despite the politicization at the moment, the idea that we're becoming a more fractured society, we can see that there is still a great deep-seated admiration between the two countries, between Austria and the United States. And despite the fact that we believe we're in this fractured time, we can also see that people are able to separate the temporary politics from the deep-seated, long-standing relationship between these two places. So for me, it was quite striking to see how people are able to separate politics from the people, essentially, and to continue this long bond that exists between them. So I think the Botstiber Foundation has quite an important role to play in healing these kind of divides and these temporary splits that can emerge along the lines of politics, and to remind people of the enormous history and shared exchange between the two sides.
We can speak with some authority about the relationship with how Austrians feel about Americans and how Americans feel about Austrians. Secondly, we notice everything is in flux, and that's very fascinating because we live in a time where the media environment is changing, where people are changing, where politics is changing. And we have at least a snapshot of how these Austrians and these Americans feel about the changes, and that should help us either make predictions, develop programs, and take action.